Welcome viewers to Bodhi Unified Flow. I'm Dr. Mari Muthu, your host. Here, we simplify complexity and amplify performance. Today's explainer is laser-focused on a critical milestone, best practices for the project definition and initiation phase. Specifically, we're unpacking regulatory compliance and statutory requirements. We are going to explore how to prepare an airtight regulatory compliance matrix that details literally every statutory approval, responsible authority, and timeline you need. We'll also check compliance with zoning, land use regulations, FAR and FSI limits, height restrictions, and heritage regulations. And finally, we'll talk about commissioning a bulletproof legal and title due diligence report, covering land title, encumbrances, tenancy, and right-of-way. Get this phase right, and you establish a rock-solid foundation for commercial success. So here's our roadmap for the explainer. First, the regulatory compliance matrix. Second, zoning and land use. Third, FAR, FSI, and height constraints. Then we'll tackle heritage regulations, move into legal and title diligence, and finally, wrap things up with a summary. By the time we finish up, you'll have absolutely mastered the structure of a compliance matrix. You'll be ready to navigate some highly complex spatial rules, understand shifting heritage constraints, and effectively strategize your legal due diligence to mitigate those hidden project risks. Right, let's jump straight into our first territory and build our compass, the regulatory compliance matrix. Think of this matrix as your ultimate operational roadmap before you even think about breaking ground. It's a comprehensive inventory of every single statutory approval you're going to need. In Tamil Nadu, for instance, this regulatory foundation stems from the Tamil Nadu Town and Country Planning Act of 1971, and it's all consolidated under the 2019 Tamil Nadu Combined Development and Building Rules, or the TNCDBR. Now, this framework took a really fragmented landscape of municipal and panchayat rules and rolled them into one unified code. For us professionals in urban planning, grasping this isn't just bureaucratic box ticking, right? It's a massive strategic imperative. Your matrix has to integrate seamlessly with digital systems like the single window portal for planning permission, so you can track everything in real time. Now you have to synchronize your application's strategy. You need to know exactly who holds the authority and exactly how long applications take once they are in complete shape. Take environmental clearance from CIA, for example. At 120 to 180 days, it's typically the biggest time sink for large-scale developments over 20,000 square meters. You've also got planning permission taking roughly 30 to 60 days, and fire safety NOCs taking 15 to 30 days. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. These timelines only apply if your documentation is flawless. The second there's a deficiency, it triggers a query cycle, which literally pauses the statutory clock. You have to parallel process these applications. Otherwise, you fall into what we call the sequential trap, where one approval is just sitting entirely idle while you wait on another. Moving smoothly along, let's pivot to the spatial rules that actually govern the dirt under our feet, zoning and land use. What's absolutely fascinating here is how massive jurisdictional expansions can turn a project's viability completely upside down. Take the draft Madurai Master Plan 2041. The local planning area there exploded from 148 square kilometers to over 1,000 square kilometers. That brings thousands of hectares of peri-urban land into the formal planning net for the very first time. You absolutely must check the latest zoning maps. But you also need to look for clever mechanisms like deemed zoning under Rule 17 of the TNCDBR. This rule basically says that sites abutting roads of 12 meters and above in Chennai and 9 meters elsewhere are legally deemed commercial. That is a phenomenal tool to facilitate development without dragging through a formal reclassification process. On the flip side, keep an eye out for shortages. Industrial land use allocation in some of these draft plans is sitting at just 4.47%, which is already causing serious pushback from trade bodies. Now that we've confirmed our zoning, we have to evaluate our physical boundaries by digging into floor space index, or FSI, and building heights. Let's talk density. Density equals financial viability, and it's strictly controlled through FSI, the ratio of total built-up area to your plot area. Normally, your basic FSI ranges from 1.5 to 2.0, but you can unlock premium FSI by paying a government charge to build more. The crucial takeaway here is that your abutting road width directly dictates your project's density. If your site sits on a road that's 18 meters or wider, you could score a massive 50% premium allowance, potentially jacking your FSI up to 3.0. But if you're on a 9-meter road, that premium is capped at 30%. This right here is exactly why site selection and road access are absolute cornerstones of the initiation phase. Now, if you want to maximize your saleable area,
You need to understand exactly which structures are legally excluded from your FSI limits. We're talking about essentially free space. Rule 29 of the TNCDBR is your best friend here. For instance, if you build a stilt floor, keep the sides open, and use it strictly for parking, that entire area is excluded from your FSI computation. The exact same logic applies to terrace-level staircase rooms, lift machine rooms, and open-to-sky or OTS portions. Mastering these exclusions is how you optimize urban land utilization, capturing more saleable area while staying 100% compliant.
And then we have building height, which triggers entirely different regulatory nightmares, or pathways if you're prepared. The magic number is 18.30 meters, roughly 60 feet. Step over that line and your project is reclassified as a high-rise building. Suddenly your compliance burden goes through the roof. You'll need multi-storied building, or MSB, panel approval, which can easily eat up 90 to 120 days. Your structural design changes completely. You'll need massive setbacks starting at 7 meters all the way around the building, plus a mandatory fire control and command center. On the other hand, recent amendments let non-high-rise buildings go up to 14 meters. That effectively allows a stilt plus 4 floors configuration with significantly lighter structural and setback demands. Section 4. Heritage Regulations. Let's look at the cultural rules that can quietly dictate your design. Heritage compliance is incredibly dynamic. Let's look at the evolution of restrictions around the Meenakshi Temple to see how this works in practice. Back in 1997, a strict government order slapped an absolute ban on any construction over 9 meters within a 1-kilometer radius of the temple. The High Court actually quashed that in 2009, but its legacy heavily influences current policy. Today, the master plan focuses on heritage area protection. So rather than blanket height bans, the strategy has shifted to protecting dynamic visual corridors, meaning you can't block the view of the temple gopurams from key avenues. But listen to this. Recent High Court directives have sparked encroachment audits that identified over 1,800 alleged violations around the temple. Heritage compliance is definitely not something you can brush off. For our final regulatory territory, we absolutely must anchor our project with a non-negotiable legal and title due diligence report.
This is your legal shield. You must commission a diligence report that rigorously traces ownership documents back to their true state-maintained sources. Do not just trust the papers sitting on your desk. In Tamil Nadu, proving a clear and marketable title requires reviewing revenue records and registered deeds going back at least 30 years, often all the way back to 1975. You've got to verify the sale deed at the sub-registrar office, you cross-check the pata on the government's e-services portal to ensure the record of right is solid, and you pull the encumbrance certificate directly from the TN Regionet portal to dig up any hidden mortgages or sneaky liens. There are zero shortcuts here.
But remember, checking the paperwork in an office isn't enough. Your matrix is only as robust as your ground-level diligence. One massive red flag to watch out for is Paramboke land. If you accidentally encroach on this non-transferable government land, you are looking at strict, non-negotiable demolition orders. You also have to aggressively mitigate tenancy and right-of-way, or ROW, risks. Under the Indian Easements Act of 1882, neighbors can actually gain an easement by prescription simply by using a path across your land continuously for 20 years. And if you block a recorded public path, that can trigger an immediate removal order under Section 133 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. Legal counsel will tell you, just because you own the path doesn't mean you can restrict access to it if others have relied on it for 2 decades. Ignore these ground realities, and your project's timeline and financing will completely derail. Let's move into our conclusion and see how all of these complex frameworks build into our final strategic synthesis. Well, we've successfully mapped the regulatory jungle, achieving our goal of structuring a project initiation that is both legally defensible and highly commercially viable. By weaving the regulatory, legal, and technical requirements into a single, synchronized compliance matrix, you dodge those devastating sequential traps. You know how to navigate spatial rules to maximize saleable area using FSI exclusions. You understand the importance of respecting dynamic heritage corridors. And most importantly, you know how to lay an unshakable legal groundwork that neutralizes title and right-of-way risks well before you commit major capital. For those of you wanting to dive deeper, here are the core legislative and best practice frameworks we cited today. You'll definitely want to familiarize yourself with the TNCDBR 2019, the Town and Country Planning Act, the Draft Madurai Master Plan, and the fundamental standards mapped out by the Construction Industry Institute. I'll leave you with this one final provocative thought. If your compliance matrix misses a single, seemingly minor local right-of-way claim, is your entire project schedule at risk of total collapse? The evidence strongly suggests yes. Your overall strategy is only as powerful as your attention to these crucial statutory details. Keep simplifying complexity and amplifying your performance. I'm Dr. Mara Muthu. Thank you so much for joining me on Bodhi Unified Flow, and I'll see you next time.